So, hi everyone and welcome. Today, as you can see, I'm not alone. I'm joined by Romaric, CEO and co-founder of Qovery. And we will talk today about cloud cost optimization with Qovery. So even if Qovery wasn't built like mainly to save on your cloud costs, a lot of our customer actually ask us if we had some tips to help with that. And it turned out that we do because ourselves we are trying the most to save on our cloud costs. And we also do have several partnerships with great companies that can help you even further. And as usual, when we do like a live before we begin, if you have any question, you don't need to wait till the end. Feel free to pop them in the chat and we'll try to answer them as fast as possible. So Romaric, welcome to this live.
Hey, thank you, Alban. It's great to be here. It's been a long time actually. Like we didn't make a live for quite a time. But yeah, happy to be here and just like cover all those topics as you mentioned. Like it's quite important topic, especially that when you run in the cloud, it's not free. Infrastructure is not free, and when you start consuming like and using some services, you increase your usage, then you have to pay more. So just like making sure that you use wisely those resources and you pay the right price is one of the most important aspects as soon as you get like into using Qovery and all different kinds of platforms. So it's not directly related even to Qovery, but we have like a few things that we want to share with everyone. And yeah, happy to be here, Alban.
Hey Morgan, nice to see you here. So before we begin, I will just go through the agenda very fast. So first, if you are new to Qovery today, Romaric will give you a quick intro to explain to you what we do. Then we will go through the way that Qovery can help you save on your cloud cost today. So things that we already have in place. We will then explore some of our partnership. As I told you, I can see that Kane, you're in the chat. And then after that, we will show you what's next on the Qovery side to help you optimize even more. So I think we can begin. So Romaric, what is Qovery?
Yeah. So just like to make it very easy, and I'm pretty sure that most of you already know like a Qovery, but yeah, it's basically a platform that runs on your cloud account and streamline the experience, like deployment experience. We consider ourselves as being like a self-service infrastructure platform. What does that mean? It means that we help like anyone's like to take advantage of the cloud and most specifically like engineering team. So as a developer, you can like very easily like deploy your applications, manage your infrastructure. Same like for IT departments and platform engineers, and that's what we do. And one specificity of Qovery is that it's a product that is really running on top of your cloud account. Okay, so you can install Qovery on your AWS account, and then from that start spinning up resources, applications directly into your AWS account, and that's the main aspect of Qovery. That's so you can really consider as Qovery providing like and solving like a great developer experience. So out of the box, you have like something that is well integrated into your working environment and help you to deploy your application into your AWS account, your cloud account. And that's why it's quite interesting and important just to cover like the cost aspects, because it's one of the most common questions that we have all the time. That is, hey, how much it's going to cost? How much cost Qovery? So you have to pay your Qovery bill, but you have to pay your cloud bill. What are like type of resources that are going to be spin up and all those things, and how can I just take a look at how much I'm going to spend on my cloud account, and how can I optimize actively all of that. Okay, and just like to complete like in terms of experience, Qovery is really fitting like into your working environment, meaning that you can just like connect to your different Git repository, your CI/CD pipeline systems if you already have one, container registries, and then start deploying your application. And what we do provide in all the demo that I'm going to do is via the web interface. Okay, we have like a beautiful web console, but we also provide like different interfaces like the CLI. We have an API and even a Terraform provider that you can use to just like spin up those resources on your cloud account from our platform. So that's basically it. Yeah.
Great. And then another question that we can ask before begin is, why does it actually matter to do cloud cost optimization? It kind of sound like something obvious, but maybe you can give a bit more insight about it.
Yeah, of course. And just yeah, something that is, as I mentioned, it's so easy with Qovery, like to spin up resources application. But even if you remove like Qovery, obviously, like for your infrastructure, you have made all the automations that you want, and it's creating new environments, new applications. It's so easy, especially with Qovery, that at some point you can like just overconsume, overspend. You can like start to really skyrocket your spending on your cloud account on AWS, for instance. And this is where just like it makes sense, like covering that aspect. So it's really part of our like onboarding process as well. We spend like one sessions with our customers explaining how do they can just actively optimize all of that. With Qovery, we have some like features that we provide, and we'll cover like those just right after. But here, what I'm showing is something that is very quite interesting, since with Qovery, we have the concept of environment. So basically, you can manage like different type of resources inside an environment. And it's so easy to duplicate those environments. It's one main use case that we have, like the preview environment use case. You want to spin up new environments, like to test the new features. So it's so easy to do it with Qovery that you can just duplicate your whole applications, your whole infrastructure in a very like a smooth way. Even the cluster itself, because Qovery runs on top of Kubernetes. And if you want to duplicate your cluster, your full infrastructure into different region or AWS, it's very easy. It's like as easy as one click. And this is where, like again, if you start deploying, creating new environments, new application, it's like it starts to be like a quite nightmare, like mostly for the financial departments, because you can have like tons of resources that are like deployed, load balance, compute instances, databases, VPCs that are created everywhere, even if you are not spending money on VPC. But again, those resources are like consuming. They're consumed. They're running on your cloud account, and at the end of the day, you have to pay for that. So that's why yes, like those optimizations, like it's quite important. And something that I wanted just to show also is like the number of like environments that you can spin up. So from our experience and our customers, what happens is that they spend in average like $300 per development. So it's for long living environment mostly. So if you have an environment that is running for 1 month, then you will spend like in average like $300 per month for that environment. And let's say that you can start to duplicate those environments. Let's say that you are not making any optimizations for those environments. Then you can see that your cost in terms like your annual cost like start to be like quite important. And again, how can we just like optimize those things? So that's the whole subject of these sessions, covering those aspects and providing you some tips that you can even apply if you're not using Qovery, but that they are like fitting well with Qovery, since we are providing some built-in features to solve those problems, but also because we are partnering with great companies just to help you to optimize as much as possible your cost, right?
Yeah, just before we continue, we have one question in the chat. Oh, two questions in the chat actually. So the first one is, does Qovery work for GCP? So it is on our roadmap. I don't know if you want to say more about it, Romaric.
Yeah, actually, we are currently working on integrating GCP. So that's something that you can follow actually from our roadmap. We have a public roadmap where we communicate on that. But yeah, you can expect like in the coming months, like getting the support of GCP. Yeah.
Yeah, I will try to put a link to it, to our roadmap. And the second comment, which I haven't read yet, is this cost optimization relevant only for big team and site with huge traffic and high uptime, or is it relevant to someone who develop his own website for his services?
No, actually, it's a very good question. And those like optimizations things are just applicable like for anyone. Like even if you have like a small application, small traffic, at the end of the day, if you are just like spending resources, you are creating new resources on your cloud account, you have to pay for those resources. But sometimes you pay even for resources that are not even used. For instance, that's something that we are going to cover. But if you have development instances that are running just for development purpose. You are probably sleeping at night, like everyone, and during the weekend maybe you are not working on that. So how do you make sure that the system itself like just shut down like those instances while they are not used? So you see, you can really apply like different kinds of optimization just to make sure that you consume and you use the elasticity of the cloud the right way. So that's a very good question. We'll cover that just after the slide. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your question. Again, don't hesitate to ask any question you have. So now I think we can explore a bit more the way that Qovery can actually already help you today with cloud costs. So I think we will cover 5 different things. And this is the first one. Romaric, I'll let you begin.
Yes, absolutely. So let's get started with the first and the most obvious one. Since Qovery is providing like what we call a state-of-the-art infrastructure platform, we do we do a lot of optimizations on your cloud infrastructure. What does that mean? It means that we are making we have made some decision in terms of like what services we should use and blah blah blah. But we are also making, for instance, in that case, I'm showing like a concrete example, for instance, to expose your applications. So when you have like an environment, you have multiple applications with Qovery, okay, and those applications, they are exposed. So you can choose if you want to expose those applications publicly or not via an HTTP endpoint or via a TCP endpoint anyway. Okay, so when you expose those applications, we need to use like on the cloud provider a load balancer. We are using an NLB load balancer, and this load balancer, for instance, is like mutualized between like the different services that we're doing. So you have like one load balancer that is used between like multiple application within the environment, but also like different environments. And you see, so that kind of optimization is like what we call built-in optimization that you don't really see. But if you dig into the details of how Qovery works, then you can see that we are making those optimization. Yeah. So that's what we call built-in optimization part of it. Yeah.
Okay. And approximately how much per load balancer per environment would you spend?
Yeah, it really depends, like obviously, of the size of the load balancer that you will use on AWS, but it starts at like a $30 per month on average. So if you start like spinning up new load balancers, like for every single applications that you want to expose, then it's a lot of money because you have to do like n times the number of applications that you want to expose with the load balancer. Obviously, you will start to think, hey, that's a lot of money. How can I optimize that? So that's something that you can do on your own if you are like managing your infrastructure, so which is good. But still, it's something that you need to think about and do it. Here with Qovery, again, we do all those optimizations out of the box just to making sure that you are not spending wasting money in any way. So yeah.
Great. Second example we have is shutting down a news environment overnight, and that's where
Yeah.
we can help you as well.
Yeah. Can you just share my screen? Yeah. Can I
Of
share
course.
my screen?
Yeah.
Yes, that's just let me show you that. So the idea is just the concept of, and to respond to your question, Prithvi, you ask, for instance, an optimization that you can put in place. That's the one. For instance, let's say that you have multiple environments. So let's say that I have multiple environments running, like this blueprint environment, which is just a development environment, and it's running here. So what we can see is that this environment is running. We have our applications that has been deployed. We can watch the live logs and blah, blah, blah. So everything is running. It's accessible from outside. But let's say that we are out of the working hours or we are during the weekend and we want to make sure that this environment, which is just a development environment, is just shut down like automatically. And this is where Qovery provides like a built-in features again that is named like a start and stop rule that you can turn on and making sure that you automatically just like shut down. So Qovery automatically, if you turn that feature, will just shut down this environment at a certain time during a certain day and make sure that this environment is started again at a certain time. So let's say that you are going to quit the work at 6 p.m. So you leave at 6 p.m. and then you come back like at 8 a.m. Then you can just choose, hey, I want to make sure that this environment like you start again. So at 7 a.m. for instance for 8 a.m. and this environment is stopped maybe at 8 p.m. So then from that you can just be sure that those resources are released if they are no longer used. You see, so this is something that you can also build on your own. So we have seen customers that were coming to Qovery that had like this kind of feature. Here you get it out of the box, but that's something that you can drastically apply in your case. Yeah.
Do you want to show something else for
No,
now?
it's good on that part, I guess. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Yeah, and anything else to add here? Yeah, so if you shut down your unused environment like overnight or during the weekend, I guess it's like you shut it down basically half of the time, or even more, which also mean that you basically save around 50% of what you would usually spend. So
Yeah,
it
exactly.
is actually a lot of money, and we do at Qovery is something that we do as well at Qovery, and that's the case for most of the example that we will show you today. Is thing that we actually use at Qovery that our engineer are using all the time. So you can trust us on that because it's something we
Yeah.
already. So
Yeah, we are paying tons of money just to run development environments. So because we are making demos, we are using Qovery directly, and making sure that those resources are released when they're not used is one of our top priorities. So we are really concerned ourselves like about of that. So yes, that's something that helps like to reduce the cost like up to 40%, I would say. There is
40.
some different aspect that we cover as well that is based because since Qovery runs on top of Kubernetes. So it doesn't mean it's not because you are releasing just one environment that you're going to release like resources that are used on the Kubernetes clusters. But the more you use those features across your different environments, and the more likely you will just get like a best result in terms of saving. So yes, that's something that works pretty well. And it's something that we really recommend all our users like using it if they have like tons of development environment, especially in the case of preview environment. That's something that we'll cover just after that. Yeah.
Just right now, actually. So yes, the next one is using preview environment and TTLs to keep cost low. I don't know if you just want to talk briefly about maybe preview environment very fast. I don't know if everyone is aware of preview environment.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's a new concept that is like emerging. A lot of companies are coming to us, pulling that product Qovery for that reason. It's basically what we call ephemeral environments. So a preview environment is something that is used and useful when you start to create, let's say you have a developer team that they wants to try out like new features that they're working on. So they're like a feature-based development. They're creating a new pull request, opening this pull request. They expect to have like an environment that is spin up to just like test and try out these features. Then that's the concept of preview environment. In here, what you can see from the screenshot, and you can even share my screen, actually, I can just show that lively. But basically, what you can do is that you can turn on the preview environment feature just in one click. And this feature is quite useful just to try out new features, but also like to save tons of money. We have companies that they are running like static environments, testing environments, so meaning that they have like long living environment. Let's say you have like a staging environment that is running and for a long living state. So instead of having those static environments, what they can do, they can use like preview environments. And preview environments, the good thing is that it's ephemeral environment. So it's like just running it's just running the time that you work on the feature. Okay. And we have an additional feature that we're working on, which is the TTL one. So the TTL is like making sure that the time to live for the environment is not exceeding a certain time. So making sure that even if this preview environment is an ephemeral one and the pull request is open like for a long time, then the environment will be in any case just shut down. Just in case that the pull request is like extending a certain time. Sometimes you have teams that they're working on features that is taking longer than expected. So just making sure that again you release like those resources. So that's what you can do. And here the concept of preview environment is really good for especially if you are like using static development environment, especially if you have like multiple of them. So you can remove all those static environments and just like use preview environments, which is good because again, you will only use like those resources when it's needed, and you will no longer have like long living environment, which is like a bit costly because you have those environments, even if they are not used, they are consuming resources, which is not good. You see?
Yeah, and so preview environment is a feature that we have in Qovery. It is something that some people build themselves, but maybe you can give us a bit of insight about this, Romaric. How long would it take for like a team to set up preview environment without having it built in?
Actually, it's a tough question because it really depends on the technical stack. But usually, the time that it takes, it's really like the skill, depending on the skill of the team that is going to handle that subject. Mostly like DevOps teams. But what from our experience, we know that DevOps engineering team, they have like tons of other things to do, and it's just one more thing where they need to spend time, and it just can take like months to build that kind of system. So it's quite time consuming, and that's why we have like a DevOps engineering platform engineering teams coming to us, like pulling the product for that reason. So because they just want to save money, save time, and just get something that is up and running in no time. Yeah.
Exactly. So um, yeah, I think that's it for that one. And then next we have the cluster autoscaling and scale to 0.
Yeah, that's actually it's a good so something that I didn't just mention with Qovery.
Mhm.
And we'll talk about that. So what you can do, but maybe you can just let me share my screen
Sure.
again. Yeah. Yes. So something that you can do, obviously. So with Qovery, when you create a cluster, so it's basically a Kubernetes cluster. Okay. So you can say, hey, I want to create a new cluster on USS1. I want to use that credentials. And then here you can choose like the instance type and so on and so forth. Okay. So that's great. Um, Here you have an options like which is basically we don't choose for you. We just want at minimum like 3 nodes for production, like a workload, just to make sure that it's running in a high availability way. But you can just adjust also like so the minimum of nodes and the maximum of nodes for your cluster. Okay. So it's a very good practice just to, it's really depending obviously of your usage, the type of workload that you're running, but letting the minimum like a number of nodes for your cluster at 3 is like a good practice. Then for that, you make sure that if resources are released at the end of the day on your cluster, then your cluster size will go down to like a 3 nodes minimum. So which is like very important. Okay, because I don't know if you're aware of how things work, but basically when you spin up new environments, so those environments, they are like deployed on those nodes. The nodes, Kubernetes nodes, they are like shared across like the different applications that you deploy, so the different environments that you deploy on those cluster. Okay, so if you release resources that are running on those nodes, then those nodes are no longer used, and if they are no longer used, then they are just like by the autoscaler scaled down to the limit, the minimum limits that you have set here in the settings. Okay.
We have a few questions. One of them is, can this be adjusted mid-deployment?
Yeah, I'm not sure what do you mean, Kane, by mid deployment. If it's by, so I'm just trying to respond until that you complete the question. But if you have already deployed, so maybe if you're asking if you have already deployed like a cluster and it's already used, can you just adjust like the settings after that the cluster has been set up? Yes, it's completely possible because here, once you have created the cluster, you can adjust the settings, the resources, and here you can change like those values and just update it. Qovery will make sure to rolling update like those changes in a smart way. You see, so even like the instance type that you choose, so that's something that we're working on with the node groups configuration from AWS. But even if you change like the node types of your cluster, then you will make sure to rolling update like all those nodes to avoid like any downtime. Yeah.
And the other question that we have was about a preview environment. So would a preview environment be an ephemeral version of a staging environment?
Yeah, absolutely. It's exactly that, Godfrey. So thanks for asking this question. But that's exactly the concept is like instead of getting like long living static environment, then you can have like ephemeral environments that are solving exactly saying the same purpose. But the benefits are first, they are just like running at the time that you use those environments. And the second is that you can spin as many as you want ephemeral environments, or preview environments for the features that you are working on. Then your developer, they are not sharing the same environments for those features. But also something that I want to clarify is that we do recommend to our customers still keeping like a staging environment that is long living, because it's always good to at least release like on a one main environment before like releasing in production. But what we do recommend is like stop using development environment, static developer environment, and instead like using ephemeral environment. So
And the last question that we have on the chat is basically the first part. So if I outsource my cloud optimization to Qovery or something else, can my time saved be better used on development or on my business and on any other productivity?
yeah, of course, that's the whole purpose of Qovery or any like other productivity and development tool is like saving you time on something and making sure that you can spend more time like on something that is much more valuable for your business. That's exactly the purpose of Qovery, making sure that you spend less time trying to do like your own stuff on your infrastructure, since also like it's really like state of the art infrastructure that we're deploying. We try to make like the solutions like super extensible, meaning that you can really get into like specific details. You can even optimize, for instance, retention. So if you want to optimize or change the load balancer size, so you can get into like deeper details of things. So keep getting the control. You have access to your infrastructure since Qovery runs everything like on your infrastructure. But at the same time, we know that the value of companies, most of companies, is not like in spending time or money in infrastructures. It's just like a mean to run their business. So we try to lower as much as possible this part, and this is what we do. So yes, of course.
And one last question, we are very popular today. Before we continue to the next slide, is how can we do this if our main product is a mobile app?
It's a good question, actually. So, if your main product is a mobile app, I do guess that you have like some backend applications that are running, even probably like a front end, some front end application databases, and all those backend stuff that are making sure that your application is like get their data like centralized. So I assume that is an application that needs to have like a server to get connected to an API to just like gather and get data and process those data. If it's not the case, then Qovery is not like the solution, because you don't need to deploy obviously backend services online. But if it's the case, then you can benefit from that. Your mobile applications itself, obviously, it's maybe not deployed with Qovery, probably not, because it's a different type of platform, and we're really focusing on deployment of like backend, front-end, databases. So all the things that are like just put in the cloud usually. And if it's the case for your mobile application and you have those kinds of workload, then you can benefit from Qovery at all.
Great. I think that's it for the question now. Is there still something you want to show on your screen, or can I go back to the slides?
No, I think it's a good. Just one thing, I want to just to talk about something that is also quite nice. Is the stop zero like option? So meaning that sometimes you just want to stop the world. You just want to completely stop your cluster. Let's say that you have for instance, where I have multiple organizations, but I just want to stop like that one. Let's say that this one, I want to stop this cluster. So in that case, it's a EC2, but I can just like stop the cluster and scale to zero. That's what we call scale to zero, because we'll remove all the worker nodes. So the nodes that are used for your applications on your Kubernetes clusters, will just like stop all of them, meaning that you will no longer pay for that on your cloud provider, okay, for those worker nodes, but you will still have the cost of the control plane itself and some stateful resources that they are like still living, because we don't erase. So when you stop something, we don't like drop all the databases and all of that. We keep the volumes, we keep the data, we just stop like everything. Okay, we keep all of that, and we make sure that we can compress as much as possible your cost. But you still have like some inherent resources that you have to pay, but the ones that we can just, and mostly the stateless resources, they are just scaled to zero. So for them, you don't pay.
Great. And just before we move to the last part of what Qovery can help with today, we have another question, which is, how is the node autoscaling mentioned different from the Kubernetes node autoscaling functionality?
Yeah, actually, it's the same. It's just that we had like our flavor, our Qovery flavor on top of it, because we are doing like some drastic, some aggressive like optimizations. Because Qovery, and probably I will share like an article explaining how Qovery works. There is like some great articles in our blog. But basically, since we are able to see and know exactly what are like the resources that are like used, and we know also some limitations that a Kubernetes cluster can provide out of the box, we can do like some drastic and aggressive optimization just to make sure that the things works the way that we want. And if you are like aware about like the default Kubernetes autoscaler, you know that there are like some limitations, like just dispatching like the different workloads based on the real consumption, and all of that is like something that is quite difficult. And this is something that we try to handle as well with Qovery. But here, from the interface and what I've shown, I just got Trey. It's a good question. Actually, it's really like the basic like Kubernetes like autoscaler that you can see here. So that's exactly what you do. You can adjust like the different nodes, the minimum and the maximum nodes that you have like on your cluster. Yeah.
So great. So the last thing that Qovery can help you with today, and this is actually kind of new. The feature went live, I don't know, a few weeks ago. So it's ARM instances. It was greatly weighted on our public roadmap. A lot of people put a lot of upvotes on it. And maybe, Romaric, you can explain us a bit more about first what are ARM instances for the one that don't know.
Yeah, usually so x86 and AMD 64 like was the main type of processor used by anyone. Like most of developers actually they didn't even know that they were using that until that they see that, hey, we have like new instances that are like coming and popping up, like ARM instances, mostly because of a MacBook Pro, a MacBook Apple, new laptops that were using M1 like a chip, which were using like ARM, just a processor instruction. And it's like ARM. It's quite interesting, especially on AWS, since they are building their own chip. They are like faster and cheaper than the AMD 64, and they are promoting and pushing a lot like to use those instances, and it's quite interesting in terms of power efficiency, in terms of cost, in terms of everything. So that's the thing. So actually, you can get exactly, and you can get exactly the same benefits of what you get with AMD 64, but for the same power, you get something that is running at the same speed, but for even like almost, so from what AWS say, almost like half of the price. And that's something that we work on like for a few weeks. So now that we have shipped maybe last month, and if you let me share my screen. So now what you can do is that you can create ARM instances, so ARM cluster. So basically, again, you can just get, hey, AWS, US is 1. You can give a name. And then here, in terms of instance type, you can choose ARM 64. So you can choose those instance types. So We explain also that there is no magic here, obviously. So if you start using those type of instances, you have to make sure that your applications are compatible with that type of architecture. What does that mean? It means that you need to invest maybe sometimes just to test out these architectures, make some changes in your Docker images, in the libraries that you're using. So you have to make sure that those things are working. But since ARM is like more and more popular, we are seeing a lot of products, even like proprietary products that are like compatible with that type of architectures. And here, the good thing is that, let's say that you're using Qovery and you want to create, I don't know, a new cluster. You want to try out this type of architecture. So what I can do, I can just create like a demo cluster, for instance. And I can just create that cluster. So let's say I'm creating it right now. Okay, so let's say ARM64 again. So let's say 60, and we'll talk about the instance type because sometimes you have the same instance type, but with different resources, but it's hard to choose, and we'll cover that aspect just after. And here you can choose the number of nodes. If you want the static IPs and some other options, we can just continue and create and install this cluster. Okay, so this cluster like is deployed now. Okay, so it's in deployment stage. So you will see that this cluster will be live in a few moments. And what we can do is that we can just basically let's say that we want to try out this new type of architecture. So from my existing environment here, I can just like clone my environment. So Blueprint, for instance, containing like 9 services, I can just in one click clone that environment. And let's say that I want to test on my ARM cluster, I can just say it's Blueprint ARM. So I can try out this new type of architecture without touching like my AMD64 and Blueprint original environment here. And this is something that is really convenient because you can start iterating, seeing if you have like better performances for cheaper price. It's something that we highly also recommend to do because it really depends on the use case. So if you want to get like a power efficiency or just like power advantage, and yes, it's very convenient and very easy because you can just like iterate on that without touching the Blueprint environment. So that's quite new. That's pretty good. That's something that you have to consider. And from what AWS says is that you can save up to like 60% on your spending, on your compute spending by using ARM instances, which is quite important actually. Yeah, it's very important.
So you just talked about the pros of using it. Are there some cons as well?
Yeah, the cons are like just the ones that I was saying, that are mostly the time that you have to invest just to make sure that your applications behave the same way, making sure that you have no performance penalty, there is no bug, or the time that it just takes to test all of that. It takes time, so it's an investment that you have to consider again. But it's super rewarding if you see the number of environments that you can spin up. If you, at the end of the day, save your cost by 60%, I do think that it's an investment that is quite rewarding at the end of the day.
Absolutely. And we have a question: are ARM instances available on GCP as well?
Yeah, good question. From what I've seen, yes, it's the case, but I'm not even sure, to be honest. That's something that you can just take a look on the GCP instances, but I'm pretty sure it's the case. GCP is quite good at shipping like a feature actually, so it will not be surprising to see that they support like ARM instances. Yeah.
Great. So moving on, now we covered all the way that Qovery can help you at the moment, but we have the chance to partner with amazing companies, some being in the chat today. But let's talk a little bit about the partnerships that we have that can really help you save on cloud costs and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
and maybe something that I can just add is like the way that we partner in general at Qovery, the way that we just choose partners is because we are using their product. That's something that is quite important because we consider we are like a software company, infrastructure company. We need to use like different products, monitoring, security, like cloud cost optimization stuff. And we are trying solutions. We are evaluating those solutions. And sometimes we find like very good solutions that are perfectly fitting with Qovery. And since at Qovery, we use Qovery for Qovery. So we can just directly use their product and try out how do they work. And that's the case like for usage AI and Kubecost, so like those two solutions, like cloud cost optimization, that are great, and we highly recommend to our users because they're like it's a zero effort, like it's very like almost zero effort solutions that they can use and take advantage right away. So which is very, very, very good. And we are using those solutions at Qovery. So that's something that we can highly recommend. And that's something, if we jump into like the usage AI one, just next slide, we can see here like a live, it's a screenshot that we made from our like interface on usage AI. And here what you can see is that we are saving like a 27% or like a cost, we can get up to like a 57%. That's something that is really like really working. So really, really, really working. And we can see the benefits like right after the first month of using. And what they do is just basically they buy like instances resources. You can see it as like a spot instances, but on steroid without the disadvantage. So that's the way I can explain, just like in a very seamless way and simple way, what they do provide. So if you are like interested, we can put you in contact, obviously, or you can take a look at their solution website. But that's something that we're using. And here you can see that we are spending so now more than 10,000 like per month on AWS in average, and we are saving like 30% of that bill. It's very important. And there is no commitment, there is no cost by using usage AI. The only thing that they're doing is just like the way that they get money is they take back like 20% of the savings that they're making. So it means that in any case, if you start using their solutions, you are like a good winner because you save money. They take just like a percentage of what they make you save. So it's in their interest just to try to save more on your cloud account. And yeah, it works well like for everyone. So there is also something that I want to add is AWS themselves. They are really like in the philosophy and the aspect of like consuming more, but in a better way, obviously on their services. What they don't like is companies that they are spending a lot of money, but they are just wasting resources, wasting stuff. So they really also push to really optimize. And that's why it's something that is maybe counterintuitive, because you will say that AWS, they just like earn money because you're spending more. But actually what they have seen is that if you're like spending more and just like not using those resources, you are more likely to churn at some point because you have the feeling to overspend for what you're using. And it's really all of that. If you see, it's really in line in that philosophy, you see. So just consuming more, yes, it's great, but in a better way, like optimizing, like not wasting money, not wasting resources, which is also in some way like important for the planet, but that's another topic. Yeah.
But yeah, for if you are already a Qovery user and you are interested about usage AI, don't hesitate to contact us. We have a type form that you can fill, and we can get you on board with that, so you can save even more money. Who doesn't like it? I think we've been using them like for Qovery for about 6 months, I would say, even maybe
Even
more.
more. I think even more, and we are seeing our spend on AWS obviously like increasing because we have even more like workload now and stuff that we are doing, but also our saving are like increasing thanks to like usage for helping on that part. We have like a very good connections. They send us like report and all of that, so we know exactly how much we are saving. So it's really good, really, really good product. And it's so good product that we consider like integrating directly into Qovery just to make sure that everyone from our user can just benefit out of the bots by clicking when they create infrastructure with Qovery, just like this thing. So that's just perfect.
Mm. And every month you have the pleasure of seeing how much money you save. It's super nice to see it
Yeah.
uh, every month. But yeah, and the second partnership, so Kubecost,
Yeah.
maybe you can tell us more about it.
Yeah, of course. And Kubecost is like one of the responding to one of the most like questions that we get from our user. Can you share again my screen, please, just
Sure.
quickly? Yes. Okay, let me just go back to something. You remember when we get to the point where we have to create a cluster? So again, let's do it again. Okay, new cluster. Okay. AWS region US is 1. Perfect. Okay, I put my credential. Okay, I go back then. Instance type. Okay, let's say that I want to, I don't know, I want like a type of instance with a 4 gig of RAM. So I type 4 gig. Okay. You see all the type of resources that you get, type of instances that you get just for 4 gig of RAM. So no, it's like 64, but for the 4 gig, we have at least like 10 dozens of different type of instances. Which one should I use? That's like a very difficult question, actually. You don't really know, okay, is it like, because if you look at the specifications of all of them, they are like IO based, CPU, RAM based, network based. So it really depends of like the type of workload that you run on your cluster. And it's like very difficult question. It's like just the question is how your applications are going to consume resources on your cluster, which is like, you can be like a very good developer. Most of developers, most of people managing infrastructure, they don't really know what happens like on the synthesis. You have to monitor, you have to be like really aware of all of that. So it takes time just to know and analyze those things. And it's something that is out of the, it's very difficult to do. And this is exactly the problem that Kubecost is solving here. And that's very good, because based on your real workload, based on your real usage of your applications, on the type of instances, okay, Kubecost can analyze what happens on those instances and provide you like some insight just to optimize and choose the best type of instances based on the current workload, the real workload. So if you go back to your screen, so this is exactly what you see here. So you have like one type of instance that is running currently. And if you look, you have like on left, you have a recommendation, and on right, another recommendation. Those two recommendations are like good recommendations that helps you to optimize a lot your costs. You have one that is like doing 30% of saving on your compute instance per month, and the other one that is doing 19% of saving. You see, same type of instances. For, let's say it's like, in that case, it's 4 gig of RAM, for CPU to CPU, but it's really based on the real usage, the most important, the real usage of your instances. You see? So you have those recommendations. You are running workload, production workload, development workload. And then after some time, then you have Kubecost that is analyzing all of that and say, hey, listen, you are like just overspending. It's even not really like the best instances that you should use based on the workload that you have inside your cluster. Then we highly recommend like using this option, which is like a bit maybe more complex to set up, but it's you will save like 30%, and you have another one that is simpler but help you to just like save 90% right away out of the box, just you're saving on your computer, your cloud cost. So that's basically what Kubecost do, and they're like doing that like very well. We are working like on a technical article and a live webinar, so we'll be super happy to show you that at a larger scale, especially when you start managing multiple cluster, multiple type of cluster. And that's something that I'm super excited to get into, because it's really, really, really an important like a part for like our customers. And it works really well. And Kubecost, the good thing in terms of business model is that it's completely open source. Okay, so you can use it for free. It's open source, and they have like business models that you can pay per cluster, per license. So it's quite good.
And once again, same then with Usage AI. If you're a Qovery customer and you feel like after today you want to use Kubecost on the top of Qovery, don't hesitate to contact us. We have a type form as well, and we can get you onboarded as well, so you can save even more. That's the goal of today's event. Okay, so coming up next is simply what's next on the Qovery side to help you optimize even more, because it's something that we are working on all the time. So Romaric, And can you tease us,
Of
if
course.
not too
Of
much?
course, of course, I love teasing like about what we're working on, and this is one of the main important aspect of the platform actually. So Qovery helps you to deploy your resources, applications, infrastructure, and do a lot of things. There's one thing that we are working on actually is like really giving visibility of what happens behind. So it's like from the actions that you're making on the platform, but also the resources that you are consuming. And this is where exactly we want to provide like a much more detailed view. We don't want to invent the wheel. We'll not like provide out of the box all the cloud optimization stuff that you can do, but at least giving you like visibility on what are the resources consumed by which services, how much you spend per cluster on your infrastructure, and integrate like in a better way. That's what I was saying, in a better way with like the right partners like Kubecost, like Usage AI, just to make sure that our users get like the right experience without the burden of getting into all the different details, but just like in few clicks can benefit and start to optimize their cost. So that's basically what you can see here, like getting a better insights and better view of like how much you consume actually from your current workload on your cluster, how much you spend, where it's running, if you have like any connections, integrations with like external services. So those are the things that we're covering. Yeah.
Great. And once again, to see how it's going and to see when it's coming, don't hesitate to check our public roadmap. We have everything there. And obviously, when it will be out, it will be on the changelog. So, again, that's something that you can follow. We try to be good with that and to update it very often. So you know when it's coming. And then when it's out, we will probably do another live about it to talk about it. But I think the event is coming to an end. Um, and thank you so much, everyone, and thank you for your question. We had quite a lot of questions. We went a bit over time. And again, if you have any other question later on, you can pop them in the chat or contact us directly. You can also use our forum, which is a good source to have. There are a lot of questions on our forum, so you can see maybe they are already answered to your question. If they are not, I'm gonna put this is our beautiful forum.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you wanna ask a question, ask it there. You will get an answer from one of our engineer.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And by the way, there is like some good resources. I'm just letting you like in that. But if you want to know more about like resources consumption, we had like couples of good questions, and those are like topics that we are covering well. So if you are looking to just like know a bit more how things are working, how resources are consumed, so those are like topics that we are like just covering as much as we can. We are providing like good diagrams, explaining all of that, how things work. It's a good way just to learn. We try to be like as transparent as possible and just explain how the things work. We know that also, obviously, it's not like obvious. It seems like obvious when you have like tons of experience, but it's not. And that's the way we see, and the spirit that we have at Qovery is just providing you resources, creating those resources. We have quite experienced. All the team is very experienced in infrastructure management. So we try to just be like a platform that is very simple to use for anyone, but also not abstract like too much the complexity, and just like sharing the knowledge and explaining how things work, which is something that you can find. And that's something that is quite important. And that's why we have so many user customers like using the forum, because they find like all those information super valuable. So just feel free like to ask all the questions that you have come to your mind into the forum. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Romaric, for being with me today and all the explanation. Thank you for everyone in the chat. And we will see you another time for another session. Bye, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.